and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham Area Municipal Access in Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the Village of Franklin. Both our TV stations, Comcast, Channel 15, and AT&T, Channel 99. In addition, today, on the radio, also in Bloomfield Hills on 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, and online, civiccentertv.com/watch-live, or click on our Watch Live link on the homepage, as well as on our Facebook pages, facebook.com/civiccentertv15 and facebook.com/lakesfm. And as always, joining me from her home studio in Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler, I hope you had the chance to get outdoors yesterday, because Mother Nature sure was teasing us with the taste of summer.
Yeah, she definitely was. I didn't get a whole lot of time outside yesterday. It was a pretty busy day over here. We had a meeting until about 8:30 last night, but then I got outside for a little bit just before I took and went on home last night, and it was still pretty warm out even by spring standards at 8:30 p.m. last night as I was leaving the building. So a little bit of that taste of summer yesterday for me, but not too much. I know it was a beautiful day. It was nice and sunny all day long and looked absolutely great outside. I went later on in the day when I went to go fill up with another cup of coffee. It was great seeing the kids over here at Chico Elementary, who also joins us on the campus over here, outside playing on the playground, having a really fun time, as we're starting to see little bits of normalcy once again, Ronnie, like kids playing on the playground and a day at school.
Yeah, think about it. Last year this time, the playgrounds were closed down.
Yeah, the parking lot was empty every day.
Yeah, and you couldn't play on the playground equipment. The beaches here in Keego and Sylvan Lake were closed for a while. So we are getting back to somewhat normal. Baby steps.
Yeah, one step at a time. As we get further along, Michigan now is just past the halfway point to that 70% threshold that's been discussed for herd immunity, just passing 35% of the population in the state with both vaccinations. If you have a 2-shot vaccination, Pfizer, Moderna, or fully vaccinated with the 1-shot Johnson & Johnson. So we're about halfway through the vaccination process. We're moving along. That's slowed down a little bit, but it's still dredging forward. And as we do that, we'll start to see some more bits of normalcy, bits and pieces here and there, but anything is great at this point. It seems like a huge step forward.
One thing that hasn't changed for us here, that all of us that live along the West Bloomfield Trail, all the animals are back already.
Oh, yeah.
Walking the dog early in the morning, ran into a big fat deer. So turned her around to walk back the other way on the trail, and then there was a fox sitting there eyeing us. So I was like, which way do we go now? Which animal are we willing to take on? But so we are seeing quite a few deer again this year, a lot of rabbits as well. I always say that we live in nature's playground.
Yeah, it really is. It's in all that wooded area around the West Bloomfield Trail. The animals like to hang out in there. They got the little dips that go down to the waterways there that are away from anywhere where humans typically are populating or going and visiting. So it's a nice area for all of them. They like to explore. There's a lot of diversity in the animal life there as well as the plant life in those wooded areas. So seeing the animals start to roam out again, it tells you it's really that time of the year where they're out of their hibernation. If they're hibernating animals, they're out playing and exploring more regularly because it's nice outside and the plants are starting to bloom.
Fingers crossed that we don't have another cold snap or frost. I know it's going to feel like that this weekend. I think it's supposed to get back to what, like just in the 50s tomorrow after the cold front comes through later today with the rain. So after yesterday, it's going to feel quite cold, although it's better than snow.
Yeah, anything's better than snow. So I'll take a little bit chilly, but sunny or at least overcast in the spring here in Michigan over a 30-degree, blustery, snowy, windy day any day.
So as we mentioned yesterday in the show, we expected the CDC to come out with new guidelines about wearing masks out in the public, outdoors, and they did so yesterday. So the CDC now says that many Americans can go outside without a mask. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention eased its guidelines on the wearing a mask outdoors, saying fully vaccinated Americans don't need to cover their faces anymore unless they are in a big crowd of strangers. So, and those that are unvaccinated can go outside without mask in some situations as well. The new guidance represents another carefully calibrated step on the road back to normal from the coronavirus outbreak that has killed over 570,000 people just here in the United States. And for most of the past year, the CDC has been advising Americans to wear a mask outdoors if they are within 6 feet of one another. So the change comes as more than half of the US adults, about 140 million people, have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and more than a third have been fully vaccinated. Officials say the decision was driven by rising vaccination numbers, declines in COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations and deaths, and research showing that less than 10% of documented instances of transmission of the virus happen outdoors. Now, the CDC does say that whether they are fully vaccinated or not, people do not have to wear a mask outdoors when they walk, bike, or run alone or with members of their household. They can also go maskless in small outdoor gatherings with fully vaccinated people. However, keep in mind, this is not going to be the case at some of the ballparks and other events that are going to be outdoors. You will still need to mask in those situations if you're not 6 feet apart.
Yeah, in each individual business or each individual entity is going to have their own policies as we go forward through the tail end of this pandemic, hopefully, that may differ from the CDC guidelines, at least be within the CDC guidelines in most cases, but maybe a little more severe and be extra cautious. So you got to be prepared for that too. While these are the guidelines from the CDC for people that are hanging out together outside without masks, fully vaccinated, or for guidance on what to do if you're not fully vaccinated or you're with people in your household or other variations, that may differ from what you see being required at a ballpark or at a certain restaurant or at a certain retail store, because everybody's going to have their own rules in place. So you just got to be cognizant of that and do your part to be as safe as possible and as courteous as possible, as people are still working really hard to navigate this pandemic and try to keep everybody happy as much as they can.
I think this is going to really be challenging when it comes to some of our outdoor events, like outdoor concerts or outdoor sporting events, such as, going to a Tigers game or a Lions game. And we know that the Dodgers announced that they're going to have vaccinated sections. Yeah. So you would almost anticipate that's going to start to happen throughout the country as some of these larger entities try to navigate how to start getting the revenue flowing once again.
Yeah, I think that's something you'll see more commonly. It's going to be business to business, company to company, business sector to business sector, how we see this may or may not be rolled out. It's going to be individual choice, and so people are going to have to just be cognizant of that and respectful of that as well, because ballparks like Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles may have one policy versus Comerica Park or Little Caesars Arena or another field, Jimmy John's Field, or any other stadium or park in our state and in our local area. And these may be different across the board. There may be similarities, but you got to be prepared for that. And I think that especially sporting events and these social events like concerts, as they're trying to get as many people into these events as they safely can to, of course, make as much money as they can possibly make, they may explore vaccinated sections because of that, because they can put more people into those sections and distance off everybody else that's either partially vaccinated or not vaccinated at all.
Yeah, what's really kind of weird about this is before we didn't go around asking people, did you get your flu shot? Did you get vaccinated? Did you do this? You do that? And so now it is such a part of everyday conversation. It almost kind of makes it a little bit uneasy in some situations, especially with strangers.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of go, what happened to HIPAA? And that was a big discussion at the beginning of this, the HIPAA rules and regulations. But now it is such a part of our lives that, people, even strangers, are turning to one another. Oh, have you been vaccinated? It's almost like it's an opening line to a conversation.
Yeah, it is. And to some extent, that's a little bit uneasy. But much like when people ask you, oh, did you go to the polls? Did you vote? What did you vote for? Did you vote yes or no on this proposal? Did you vote for this candidate or this candidate? Everybody's got the right to refuse to answer that question if they're uncomfortable. So if you're not comfortable answering that question, just say, I'm not really comfortable answering that question. That's my own personal medical information, and it's frankly none of your business. And move forward. In some cases, you may be turned away from social gatherings. You may be turned away from concerts or sporting events and all of that while this pandemic still goes on. And that's just a trade-off of the times that we're in as we're trying to get out of this pandemic, and we slowly but surely get to that 70%, 70 to 80% threshold that we need across the country to be at the herd immunity point and be out from under this.
So the governor is saying that new COVID-19 policy changes could be coming soon here in the state of Michigan. So the governor said Tuesday that a measure of normalcy might be on the horizon soon for Michigan in its ongoing battle against COVID-19. Whitmer noted cases in the state are beginning to decline, and officials are monitoring updates from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as information on the virus evolves and officials learn more about the efficacy and longevity of the vaccines. So in Michigan, 48.5% of the population has had at least one COVID-19 vaccination. About 2.8 million residents, or 35% of the adult population, are fully vaccinated. The governor's goal is 70% of adults in the state, because we need to keep in mind the vaccine has not been approved yet for those under the age of 16 for, I believe it's the Pfizer, and then 18 for the other ones. The governor said, I would anticipate forthcoming policy changes potentially that will feel a little bit more normal for us all. The governor said yesterday at an unrelated press conference, the more people that get vaccinated, the more things we'll be able to do. But we are continuing to monitor what the CDC is recommending and our data here in the state of Michigan. Now, the governor's comments come as Michigan's COVID-19 hospitalization and infection stats have improved over the last 2 weeks, but the state still leads the nation in new cases per population as it has for nearly a month. There is optimism, though, that the peak has been reached, and this latest surge, the numbers are going to start to go down. And I think the weather is going to play a big part in that as well, Tyler, because more and more people, as the weather improves, will be gathering outside rather than inside.
Yeah, that was a big help last year around this time in dipping the cases back down, was getting back outside where the spread of COVID-19 is less likely or isn't as severe as it is in close indoor gatherings where you're in more confined spaces. With this new CDC guidelines, also kind of showing that that's a little less of a risk factor being outdoors. So that hopefully will contribute to these case numbers continuing to go down. That slight change that we've seen over the last couple of weeks here in the state of Michigan looks like it's starting to sustain itself. And if that continues, while we're still in arguably the worst situation numbers-wise in the United States, those numbers are improving and hopefully continue to trend back down in that direction. And all of us as Michiganders then take that as a lesson that when we do let our guards down that much, things can still go haywire even this far along, even when we are halfway to that herd immunity point and getting people fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
Yeah, let's hope that Mother Nature gives us an amazing spring and summer like we had last year.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped all of us, not just with keeping the COVID numbers down, but also our mental health, because we were so bombarded with COVID and being indoors and locked down. But we had amazing weather last year. Fingers crossed we get that again this year.
Yeah, hopefully we have anything anywhere near that last year's spring and summer would be amazing again. I mean, it was just so nice. Very little weather situations that took away from the sun and the ability to get outside and have a lot of fun here in Michigan, even despite the pandemic. If we're anywhere close to that, it's going to be a great spring. It's going to be a great summer, and will hopefully be very helpful as we try to put that final bit of the fight into eradicating COVID-19 from being a major problem, at least. It may continue to sustain itself beyond the pandemic, but at least taking it out of pandemic proportions.
And one thing to also keep in mind, we're not out of this just yet, and trials are still going on for treatment of COVID-19. And Metro Detroit residents are needed for an oral COVID-19 treatment clinical trial. So Metro Detroit residents who have been recently diagnosed with COVID-19 or are currently ill after being exposed are needed for a clinical trial for a new virus treatment. So phase 2 of 3 of the national study will examine the safety and efficacy of a Raleigh, North Carolina-based pharmacy company. The drug is RHB-107. The medication is administered orally, and it has like an antiviral and potential tissue protective effects that target human cells rather than the COVID-19 virus itself. Researchers are enrolling 300 patients with symptomatic COVID-19 who do not require hospital care in a randomized double-blind study with placebos. So the trial requires one visit to Henry Ford Hospital, that's on West Grand Boulevard in Detroit, just at the beginning of the study. And then the remainder of the trial is going to be self-monitoring at home with devices to monitor the vitals. Nurses will also make in-home visits to check in on patients, collect blood samples, and test for the virus using PCR swabs. Anyone that is interested in participating, we have a link on our website, civiccentertv.com. One of the things is we forget, because now that we have the vaccine, I think it's getting harder for people to participate in some of these trials, but the study of the COVID-19 virus is still very real.
Yeah, it's still a very new virus. The novel coronavirus that began this pandemic was a completely new illness that there wasn't research on. There was research, of course, on coronaviruses that definitely helped to create a vaccine in such a swift nature. But this particular strain, the novel coronavirus, and of course the variants that have arisen since then, there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge on that. And we are only about 14 months into this pandemic, and that's about 14, 16 months or so of knowledge about this virus itself. So we're going to continue to learn things. They're going to continue to have a lot of research be done, a lot of clinical trials to be done to learn more about this disease, even as the pandemic is coming to an end and afterward, because COVID-19 doesn't necessarily go away when the pandemic is over. It's still something that is out there, and the more we know about this, the more it can inform us about other coronaviruses, and even help inform us on how to better address the next pandemic or prevent the next pandemic.
So, of course, as always, you can find the latest headlines. Just go to civiccentertv.com, click on coronavirus. There you'll find the latest headlines. And then at the top of the page, we also put direct links to some very valuable resources for you to be able to check out on your own, including the CDC, so you can read the guideline changes for yourself, as well as Oakland County and the state of Michigan. We're going to take a quick break here on the MegaCast. When we come back, we have a great lineup for you of guests. Up next, we are going to be speaking with the president of Planterra. How are they doing right now? It has been a tough year for them, but summer brings new hope along with the vaccine. Could business be picking up? We'll be talking with the president right after this break.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Great to have you taking time out of your Wednesday hump day to be with us here on the MegaCast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. Our first guest kicking off this show. What an amazing place to be able to work, to go in and to see the beauty of Mother Nature each and every day. With us now, let's bring in Shane Pliska. He's the president of Planterra. Thank you, Shane, for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I'm just so envious of your backdrop. I'm a person, I struggle. I do not have a green thumb.
Well, we have plenty of green thumbs here. And there really isn't a bad backdrop over here at Planterra. Every time I do one of these things, I just kind of move on to another nook and just broadcast amongst the plants and flowers. Yeah.
That is so awesome. For those that aren't familiar with your company, give us a backdrop. I know that mainly you're in, like it's interior landscaping, but you also do so much more.
Sure. So we started in the 70s as an interior landscaping company, which provides plants and flowers and the maintenance that goes with it to indoor spaces. So some of the local places that you might recognize would be like at Somerset Mall or Henry Ford Hospital here over in West Bloomfield. Those are examples of the facilities that we take care of with their indoor plants. And then we also have our flagship conservatory facility, which is right here in West Bloomfield on Drake Road. And so we built this building. In 2010, it replaced historic, or I would say older greenhouses that were from the 30s that couldn't be restored. And we now use the space as a wonderful wedding and event venue during normal times. Right now, we're limited at what we can do, but we have a really strong lineup beginning for when we expect things to come back.
So with that, how many people will it hold for a wedding?
Well, when we're back in operation fully, at that point, we could do up to about 200 people. We don't expect to do that number of people until we're allowed to, which we expect possibly would be sometime this fall. Maybe not. We don't know yet.
But I would think as someone that is planning a wedding, it would be just an amazing backdrop. Are you seeing more people are interested in having kind of that smaller, more intimate setting?
I am seeing that people just want to have fun and they want to have a reason to celebrate. They want to have a place to go out to. And so if it's for a wedding, I mean, that is, people are, we haven't been going out all that much. So it becomes even more of a treat to do so. So there's much more focus in on these future celebrations in many cases, or smaller ones that can happen now. It's there are, people are having fun. That's really what it is, because they need to.
Yeah, it has to be such a hard time planning a wedding, because can you invite 25 people? Or can you invite 250 people? No one knows what it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road. So it definitely poses some challenges. But you have a beautiful facility there, and what an incredible backdrop.
Thank you.
So with that, let's talk about your business side. Has it been pretty level throughout this past year of the pandemic, or are you seeing ups and downs?
Well, we're seeing a tremendous demand for plants. And so even though we supply commercially, even for commercial spaces, they're looking to reinvent the workplace for when people come back to the office. And so there's an enormous amount of plans going on at most corporations around here, trying to figure out, well, what is the new workplace going to look like? Are we going to keep a hybrid model of going back to the office? Or are we going to be fully at the office? But when we do, how are we going to look at it differently? And so plants are a real big part of all of those designs. And so our people have been busier than ever trying to meet the demand for these designs that we expect we'll be installing pretty soon. But a lot of these are in the planning phase at the moment.
That's really interesting to me. I'm surprised with that. And so how are plants, do you think, are going to be implemented to help realign the office space and the workspaces?
Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of these workspaces that people were going to work in, the classic, cubicle farms that were from the 1980s were not pleasant places to work. And so when we realize that a lot of these white collar functions can be done remotely or anywhere, and the workplace becomes more of a place where people want to collaborate, it's where there's more teamwork. It's just not about these individual boxes. It's a total mindset change. It's a design change. It's a work style change. Generationally, we already saw this before the pandemic of younger generations saying, well, I can do a lot of my job from anywhere, but I still need to go to the meetings. We still need to be part of the culture. Okay. And so when you look at the future of the workspace in that regard, it's really exciting. I think that it's going to really benefit productivity in the long term, even though in the short term right now it's confusing because we have a lot of distractions. If people are homeschooling kids or they're trying to figure out how to work unideal situations because no one was expecting to be working from home this often. It's going to be really fascinating to see what happens. But plants are part of that. It really is. Plants are really part of the future of workspace design in general.
Much nicer to look at than the cubicle, that is for sure. Shane Pliska with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president of Plantera. And with that, Shane, we know that if your team is busier than ever, so many companies are struggling right now getting employees. How is your company doing on that front?
Well, we're fortunate that we've retained our people throughout the pandemic. We didn't do mass layoffs or anything like that has happened in different sorts of industries. But it is difficult to fill positions, and it's understandable as to the why. And so we're just doing our best. We're offering competitive rates. If you go on Plantera.com right now and look in our careers section, we have a number of job postings. So we have some exciting careers here if any viewers are interested in applying.
Do people have to have a green thumb, or can they learn on the job?
They can learn on the job, but liking plants is a requirement.
That is good to know. And with that, Shane, too, what do you think the future of your company is going to be over the next year or two?
Well, I mean, we're pretty excited. I'm optimistic on the trajectory of the vaccines. Our event team has been retained as well, and they're actively planning weddings every single day. So we're really excited to get back to full capacity whenever that happens. We see a lot of growth especially over the next 2 years. I think that's true for a large percentage of a lot of businesses around us too.
Yeah, I know people have pointed out after the Spanish flu of 1918, we went into the roaring 20s. And so when we come on the backside of this, people are definitely going to be looking to have a lot of fun.
I hope so. And we need it. We really do. We are not, people that belong in caves. We need to be out there and social. We are social beings. So this isolation, I think is, the end of the isolation is the medicine that we really need from a mental capacity. We need to celebrate life.
And do you find, or have you seen an interest in more plants from people because we've been through the pandemic and we are starting to take advantage of getting outdoors and exploring our backyards more now than ever?
I mean, the answer is yes, and it's true for indoors as well as outdoors in terms of home gardeners. And that's one of the reasons why, there's a shortage of actual certain plants right now, because so many people have demanded to have plants in their homes because we're in our homes all the time.
Yes, that is so true. And with that, when it comes to the office spaces, how has that been working? Because so many office buildings are closed down right now, or maybe just have skeleton crews within the buildings. Does that impact your work at all, or no? Because you still have to maintain the plants, whether people are in the building or not in the building.
So of course it impacts what we do. Fortunately, the majority of our customers that utilize our services have chosen to keep our services, so they can maintain the investment that they made in the plants so they won't die. And the truth is, I'd say the majority of our clients, there is a percentage of, the office workers who are there. They are utilizing their facilities in just a smaller capacity. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm hearing some offices are basically doing like a hybrid situation, just like the schools did, right? Where, okay, Monday to Tuesday is team A and team B, and you switch on and off and this, that, and the other. So people are getting very creative throughout this pandemic. But there has been a lot of focus on, will people return to the office buildings? Are you worried at all in the long term that some of these businesses will allow people to remain remote and we'll see the office building setting going away?
I am not concerned about that because everything evolves over time. And so plants are generally placed in what I would call the public facing spaces. And so those public facing spaces are not going to go away. In fact, there's going to be more meeting spaces. There's going to be more loungy type spaces, collaborative spaces. So even though there is a great deal of work at home, which will stay, that in-person collaboration is not going to go away. In fact, what we're noticing is that we need it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and with that, Shane, we're talking with Shane Pliska. He's the president of Plantera. With that, Shane, too, as we look forward to the future, I'm just wondering, is someone with a very black thumb, I can't keep a plant in my house alive. How do you do it in these office buildings? And what are the logistics involved in your business?
Well, I mean, being in a cold climate here in Michigan, the logistics in wintertime are a lot more challenging than during the summer. But we have a wonderful trained group of people here that know how to handle the plants, to bring them in and out of buildings and also maintain them. Our warranty covers these plants inside these facilities, provided that we have access to maintain them. So that means that we actually will swap out the plants before they look ill. So to someone who doesn't know that we do that, it just means that, oh gosh, these plants look fabulous here all the time. But it very well could be the case that those are new plants that have been rotated out after so many months or years in that case. Yeah.
So what's the secret to picking the right plant for the right environment?
It's called light. So light dictates everything. Because when people talk about plant food and they look at these little cartons like it's ingestible food, that's not how plants eat. Plants eat from the sun. They need to photosynthesize. That's how they get their energy. And so there's certain plants that do better and are more tolerant of lower light. And then there's also plants that need a whole lot of light. And so most failures is because of a lack of light.
Wow. So when you go into a new business, say maybe a new client, you really have to study the layout of that building.
We do, and we have light meters, and so we measure the light, and we have our palette of plants that are going to do well or perform the best in those light conditions. And what's also really nice about modern, I would say, newer windows and new lighting systems is that workplaces have much better lighting than what we used to have, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago. And what's actually been good for the plants is actually good for the people too. So it's kind of like the plant's kind of like the canary of the workplace. So if you can't keep a plant alive in your place, it's probably not a healthy place for you to be working in 8 hours a day either.
Oh, that might be a good one to put past the bosses, right?
There is truth in it. Yeah, there is. These plants require similar conditions that we need.
Wow, we're talking with Shane Pliska. He's the president of Plantera. And with that, Shane, I have to ask, go ahead and give up a secret. Do you own a fake plant at all?
Of course I do. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the term biophilia, but biophilia, what we call them replica plants, achieves some of the same benefits from a psychological standpoint in terms of making our brains feel as though that we're near nature. We don't discriminate on the plastic plants, but there's bad plastic plants and good and higher quality ones, and they also have a lifespan, and that's the most important things about replica plants is it's not permanent. The compounds that it's made out of will get covered in dust and will dissolve over time.
Oh, see, that's fascinating. I learn something new every single day on this show. So with that, Shane, where can people find more information?
More information about plants, plantera.com is a great resource. If you would like to learn about our botanical conservatory for weddings, planteraevents.com is a site that has all the information on how to book an event here.
So are you guys booking up pretty quickly? How far out are people having to book?
Well, because of so many postponements that have been occurring for events, we're pretty much full through 2023. So it is hard to get dates here. We have some openings, but not many. Yeah.
Wow, 2023, that's amazing.
It takes a lot of work to plan a wedding.
It really does. Well, fingers crossed that this year, many of the weddings that were postponed, rescheduled for this year can continue to go on without more delays. Shane, we always appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on here.
Before we let you go, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to share before we say goodbye?
I just wanted to share that that plants really is medicine in many ways. And I would encourage everybody just for their own mental health to either have a plant at home and get outside. We all need to have this. Plants are part of health. They really are.
Yeah, but we are so lucky if we can enjoy Mother Nature. You have a beautiful place that you work. I know I'm lucky enough to live on the West Bloomfield Trail, and it does make a big difference when you can enjoy nature. So great advice, Shane. Thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.
We're going to take a quick break here on the MegaCast. When we come back, we're going to be talking with the chef of the butchery. That's next year on the MegaCast.
Quitting smoking can improve your health, but it also protects your loved ones from secondhand smoke. Did you know there's no risk-free level of exposure to secondhand smoke? Smoke from cigarettes, e-cigs, and hookah can travel through ventilation systems and harm those around you. So clear the air and stop secondhand smoke. Call the Michigan Tobacco Quit Line at 1-800-784-8669. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to be with us here on the MegaCast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe holding things down back there in West Bloomfield. As a reminder, you can always find us Monday through Friday. We are live 10 a.m. until noon. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Municipal Access, as well as Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. And to make it a bit easier, you can also listen to us on the radio if you're out driving around. 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And today we are also live streaming today's edition of the MegaCast on our social media site, Facebook, Civic Center TV, 89.3 Lakes FM. Joining us next on the show, one of our favorite little gems here in the Sylvan Lake Keegle Harbor community is the butchery. To talk more, let's bring in David Hubbard. He's the chef. So great to have you.
Hi, Ronnie. How you doing? Great to be here.
We're good. I think this is the first time we're having you on the show.
Yes, the first time on your show, definitely. This isn't the first time I've met you, though. I think you've been into the store, and I've seen you even before we opened the store. So
I know you've been a part of our community for years. You used to work with Annabelle Cohen.
Correct.
We've had her on a few times as well.
Yeah.
Annabelle and I go back to Fox 2 producing days.
I was gonna say a couple years, just a few.
Yeah, I like that because we don't want anyone to add up the years, right?
Yes, I'll say that.
So can I ask you, how are things going? Because it does look like you're expanding a little bit.
It's kind of twofold. We expanded, we opened up the pop-up space next door to the store, if you will, the meat market here. And then COVID hit. And so we kind of shut that down. And so it was a good thing in a lot of ways because we could focus on the store, the grocery and the meat. And that kind of was what people needed at the time. So it kind of worked out for us in that manner. So now we're trying to get pop-up back open and kind of bring people in smaller groups, 6 to 8 people. The space can fit up to 40. So we're trying to be really small, distance, give everybody only private cooking classes so we can be as responsible as possible. But it also gives us an opportunity to just keep the flow at the store. We can keep people distance. We have the extra space now. So no one coming in feels like they're crowded or uncomfortable with more than say 3 or 4 people in the store. We don't generally, because we are a smaller spot, we don't generally get that busy. So it kind of, it flows pretty well. But expansion, as far as expansion, that's what you're seeing. We're just trying to fill out the space again and get things going.
If we can stick with the shop for just now, I can't wait for the pop-up, by the way. So, but with the shop, it's like you said, for us that live here in the community, we've been so desperate for some type of local, little store, such as the butchery, and you guys opened. And it's been great to see you start to add more things because you don't have to run to Kroger. You don't have to run to Aldi. It's right here in our backyard. But what's been the response from the community? Are they supporting you more and now because of the pandemic, or does it ebb and flow?
I think it's more ebb and flow, quite frankly. Pandemic hits, you got to think about it. We're more of a specialty market. So we're a price point, people that might not be able to afford us. So they might be pushed to another market, if you are, or more of a larger place, a box store. But I would say as far as support, we see a ton of support from the very close community, Keegle Harbor, Sylvan, West Bloomfield, Pontiac, Commerce even. But it ebbs and flows as far as like the weather, right? Like nothing different. Like if it's really nice weather, people want to barbecue, that they're going to come and get some. But to more specifically to expanding to what people want, in the store, we started out with the idea wanted a meat market. But because of the demand of the community, there is no 3.5 miles to Kroger. It's the closest grocery store proper. People are asking for more grocery items. So we were able to add on even bread, chips, if you will, crackers, a lot more cheese, things that kind of fill out the meal, not just the center of the plate, if you will.
Yeah, because sometimes, if you just need an avocado, you don't want to run.
We try to have, The biggest challenge for us, and I think it would be for anybody, is finding those items that everybody, that we can move enough that it makes it worthwhile for both of us, right? Our price doesn't have to be, super high, and we can move enough volume so it works out for both us and the customer here close by. The community has told us that, we like romaine lettuce, but we don't really want a ton of a mixed lettuce. So we've kind of weaned it down, to, we have a romaine, we have a spinach. We try to have, maybe my idea coming into it as a chef, we try to have what you would need to complete a full meal, different kinds of meals, if you will. But we do find ourselves getting questions like, are you going to have cereal? Are you going to have some of the more staple items? Flour, we found in the pandemic, my wife was bagging 5-pound bags of flour and things like that. We were buying in bulk, and that was rice and stuff like this. People were very, very thankful for that. So that was us just adjusting to what was needed. We don't need that necessarily now, but we can have like a higher end, say Caputo flour on our shelf, and it does pretty well. So I guess long way to answer your question, but yeah, it ebbs and flows, but we're just trying to adjust to what the community wants, quite frankly.
And that can be hard because it's changing as the pandemic's been changing. And at the end of the day, you're still a business needing to survive.
Yeah, we're a young family, a young business. We just came in 17, May of 17. So we're just about to celebrate our four-year anniversary here. So all those hurdles and obstacles of learning how to run a business, how to be a proper manager, how to be a part of the community, right? So to be able to be intertwined with what the people want, and also to be able to take care of our little ones and our needs too. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but I think we found a community that is very receptive to if we need to take a day off. They understood, like last week, we took a couple of days off and shut the store down and just relaxed at home. We didn't have any backlash. No one was upset. No, that's the thing that I think as a small business that warms my heart, because the community is what makes that possible. The people that walk or ride their bike here, that say, you need to take a break, Dave, you're getting a little edgy, they let me know, so that's the part that's kind of cool. And so I'll make sure I have whatever it is that they want next time they come in, kind of thing.
We're talking with Dave Hubbard. He's a chef over at the Butchery, located right there on Orchard Lake. And with that, Dave, what's it like to work with your wife every day?
It's it has its ups and its downs like anything else, right? So it boils over. The biggest thing is, and I get asked this question a lot, and it's really hard for me to answer it, but I've taken a lot of time to think about it, and I'll probably give you the best answer. We had to really find a way to separate the two. When you go to work, you have that work life, you have those people that you deal with, and you come home, and then you just have family, and you can share the stories from work or share the stories from what you did when you weren't together. Julie and I don't have that thing, so it's like, we know what you did because we were there. And it's so finding ways to separate the two has been our biggest challenge, yet the most rewarding. So finding different ways to go on a 2-hour day date on a Wednesday when the kids are at school and we're closed, right? So stuff like that. Nothing. It's tough, but it's easier from the standpoint of when she yells at me, I know that, when she can't fire me, right? And vice versa. If I'm yelling at her, I can't really fire her. Like it's a 50-50 thing, right? So we have to learn to be amicable in a lot of ways. So like marriage maybe taught us to be good business partners.
Well, it really is amazing to see so many couples that can work together, because I think one thing throughout this pandemic, it's put so many new dynamics on families.
Oh, yeah.
Because, even in our household, I'm used to my husband leaving and going to work. It's like, hey, are you guys allowed to go back to the ballpark yet? When do you think you're going to be able to get back into the studio?
Oh, 100%. Same thing with Julie. I do a small podcast myself, and I do some other stuff that's off premise, just my own kind of whimsical stuff, cooking and having fun. And she's always asking, don't you need to go do something?
So with that, are you guys still doing like the lunch sandwiches, that side of the house as well?
Definitely. We shut that down proper during the peak or the shutdown of the pandemic time. So we didn't do the sandwiches. We didn't do any kind of service, if you will. but we opened that up just before Christmas. And yeah, Sam, by the demand of the people, it was more of a, we had a lot of customers that were upset that we weren't serving the sandwiches. They're like, we're not here to get your meat. We want the meat. We want the sandwiches. We don't want to cook it ourselves. We want you to cook it. So by demand, they're back. And I got to tell you, that's probably the most, as a chef coming in and having a meat market and doing this whole thing, switching kind of hats, if you will, daily, being able to make the sandwiches and cook and do stuff like that is probably the most rewarding part for me on the daily. And just the response, people, they're more excited about that than anything else that we do here. So it's kind of cool, I think.
Well, they are some of the best sandwiches, though.
Well,
they definitely are. So with that, Dave, too, if I can ask, what's it been like for you with the supply chain?
You know, that's a great question. In the beginning, it was very, very tough, especially for us being a smaller business. And not really having a strong foothold being a young business. So we had to pivot, and we really leaned on Sysco Food Service, a large, generally restaurant supplier, was the one who came through and really, really helped us in a lot of ways because they had a lot of product that they weren't supplying for restaurants. Mm-hmm. And so here we had an avenue to produce it and sell it to the folks on a retail setting, in a meat market or in a grocery store setting, like a restaurant couldn't, right? So that was a really good partnership for us, just connecting that from my days as a chef in the restaurant world. That and, you know, Caps Wholesale downtown, Fairway Packing, these companies did very well at making sure that they kept us local, smaller Michigan brand companies, Bush's, you know, Plum, places like, they kept us going. They kept us supplied. We didn't really feel much of a dip. The bigger thing now is it's the staffing, right? So at if you will, part of slaughterhouses and production houses, farms, there's no people, even, you know, you go to McDonald's, there's no one working there. You come to our store where we've been now hiring since the day we opened. Just finding staff is really the challenge. So for us, it's the pricing of the meat is gone, the commodity of it, right, has gone out. Like just it's bounced in the last 2 or 3 weeks, just 10-12% even. And it's going really high this summer because there's no one to really produce the meat. So there's very little bit produced. And so whoever's going to pay the top dollar for it's going to get it, right? And that's hard for us as a smaller guy to pass it on. So it's just finding ways to maneuver through that. But the supply chain has been fairly good for us finding that partner, if you will, that would normally supply restaurants.
It really is. When you're a small business owner, there are so many aspects to running the business and keeping it going. And,
oh, yeah.
You know, in the supply chain, if they're having staffing shortages, then that impacts the business and then all of us as well. Dave Hubbard with us here on the MegaCast. He's a chef at the butchery. And with that, Dave, I'm so excited to see you all starting to bring back the pop-ups because for us here locally, Jeremy's, when it used to be Jeremy's before Jaybird, he used to do these private cooking classes. And my husband used to think it was okay to, you know, microwave chicken.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, totally. Come on.
So I had to send him over there to one of Chef Jeremy's classes, you know, and now they've switched. And so it's great to see it coming back. And too, in a small thing, because for so many people, if they're uncomfortable being with strangers, this could be a great like birthday party or a celebration of that nature.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The biggest challenge for us was not so much the timing of it, but it was the comfort level of the folks that are coming, right? You got to think about who's coming to a cooking class. It's and who's going to be. So most of our classes were private. Those were the classes that seemed to be filled the fastest, if you will. And when we had the public classes, even before the pandemic, it seemed to be a challenge to fill at times. But now it 100% has shifted where people, I think they feel much more comfortable being in their own pod or their own circle, their own group, and they can come into the store or into the pop-up space and have it like their own area, their own restaurant, their own whatever. I can teach or guide a class, or Julie can teach or guide a class And we're a good 12, 15 feet away. Folks don't have to feel uncomfortable from a standpoint of there being any other interaction, any influx of other people, or any kind of, there's no variables from the standpoint of, oh, there could be 20 people in this party and I don't, or at this class, if you will, and I don't know where they're from, right? That's where we kind of shifted to that. And the interest level has been really, really big.
That's good. So how does it work? Do you pick the menu, or do they have an option of 3 or 4 menus?
I've had the luxury, and I say the luxury, I've worked at places like the Ritz-Carlton when it was in town. Julie and I met at the Townsend. So I've got a vast, I worked at Slo's Barbecue downtown. I have a vast variety of experiences, menus I could pull on. But quite frankly, it doesn't matter what I want to cook, right? So if you want to come, Ronnie and Woody, and you want to bring a couple family members or friends or whatever, your small group of 6 to 8 people, and have a cooking class, you kind of tell me what you like. What do you like? And we would kind of go through leading up to the class, a couple, a week or whatever, what kind of menu, and we would just hammer out a menu. And we use 3 to 4 courses, and we supply all the food, everything you need to make it, all the equipment, all that kind of stuff. And we go through the class, we make the three courses, 4 courses, and then your group will sit down at the end and eat it. So we set up almost like a dining room setting in the separate side of the space. So it's a full experience. It's not just a cooking class. It's a cooking class, and then you can kind of have your own thing. You want to celebrate a birthday or whatever it is, you can slide over into the other area of the room, sit down, eat all the awesome food that you just made. And do that for a fairly good price. You're here for, most of the parties run 3 to 5 hours, and it's $75 a head generally. If you want to do steak and lobster, it might be a little bit more, but in all actuality, I think bang for your buck. You're learning 3 to 4 recipes, maybe a technique or 2 in the process, and you're getting all those invaluable memories with your family and friends, hopefully.
And it's such a much better way to do it than those Zoom cooking classes. I know a lot of people have been trying those throughout the pandemic.
Let me tell you,
being able to do it in person is the way to go.
I did a few of the Zoom cooking classes, and I got to tell you, I could only put myself in the same shoes as like my first grader daughter, right? Going to school on Zoom. It's those social cues that it's so hard, like just, you just got to whip that egg a little bit more. I can't really see it in the screen, right? Like it doesn't make sense, like it's very tough, very tough. So yeah, did a few of those and said, forget about it. Like it just keep myself here at the store and, try to stay busy that way. But
well, we are so lucky to have you guys in the community. And with that, for those that maybe have not visited your shop and your store, where are your hours and where exactly are you located?
We're located at 2534 Orchard Lake Road. We're in Sylvan Lake. So we're the little community tucked between West Bloomfield and Kego Harbor. And we are open Monday and Tuesday from 10 to 6. And we're closed on Wednesdays always. And we're open on Thursday and Friday from 10 to 7, Saturday 10 to 5, and Sunday 9 to 3.
So how hard is it to manage that schedule with you and your wife?
I generally come in early in the morning. I'm here between 4 and 5 a.m., cut the meat, set the counter, make sausage, do all that stuff. And then she gets the kids off to school and whatnot. And then she comes in 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So we kind of get the door open with some help of another employee here and there. And then she kind of takes it from the afternoon and closes the store. And I will go home and kind of, pick up the kids and manage the house for a couple hours until she gets home.
Well, it's been great having you here with us on the show. Anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, then we touched on everything. I just, I really do appreciate the love from the community. And I you say we appreciate having a place like yours in the community. For a young family to go out on a ledge, if you will, a leap of faith to start a business and to take on all that. You hit on a couple of things that were really cool, is understanding that the challenges of the family dynamic of it and the challenges of just learning the business of the business, if you will, right? Like I'm a chef and a butcher. I'm not necessarily know commodities or know how to interact with people, so things like that. But that's it. Just we really appreciate the community, and we do pay attention to your show. We watch it, and we love that you have people like Annabelle on, and you talk about Jeremy from Jaybird, phenomenal chef. So we just love being a part of that.
Well, good. We're lucky to have you here, and we wish you continued success as well. And again, please, people, shop local, support local. We know our big box stores are going to make it through this pandemic very easily. In fact, they are booming in business, but we need shops like yours because you really are not only the backbone of our community, but also you're the uniqueness of our community. And we know that they have big plans for the Kego Sylvan Lake area over the next 10, 15 years. And so we hope you are able to stay and continue to grow as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, David Hubbard with us. He is the chef over at the Butchery there in Sylvan Lake on Orchard Lake Road. Please visit them. If you don't want to pick up your meat, please stop by for a sandwich at lunchtime. They have a picnic. The weather's getting nice. Go there, get your sandwiches, and go over to the lake and have a picnic. So we appreciate your time. We're going to take a quick break here on the MegaCast. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 WBFH. When we come back, we'll be speaking with the CEO of JARC. That's next here on the MegaCast.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
You're listening to the Oakland County MegaCast on 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. The MegaCast will return after this quick break.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the second hour of the MegaCast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios. Mr. Tyler Keefe, as always, holding things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. He is our superhero behind the scenes, always with the cape on there, keeping us on the air each and every day. And we always appreciate the work that he, Larry, and Jake do each and every day to help bring you this show. We are so lucky in this area to have so many great nonprofits and organizations. But we've all had to shift and struggle a little bit as we continue to try to navigate the COVID-19 crisis. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Shandell Brownstein. She is the CEO for JARC, a nonprofit organization here in our area that helps individuals with development disabilities. Shandell, thank you again for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us more about JARC? I know we've had you on before, yes, but for those that aren't familiar with your organization, give us some background.
Absolutely. So JARC is, again, a local not-for-profit, and we provide residential services to adults with developmental disabilities so that we can make sure they are living their fullest lives possible. We're actually about to enter our 52nd year, and I say to people, the last year in change has been interesting and new for all of us.
Right. So I always kind of equate it to, it's like dog years, right? The 1 year has been like 7.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I think I'm going to just start thinking about it in that regard, because it's certainly, it does seem longer than it's been, but it's good that we have a lot of hope on the horizon.
But you haven't stopped the important work that you've been doing and helping so many people here. And I love the history too, how the organization even got started.
Right. So yeah, I mean, this was, you talk about what an idea becomes. 52 years ago, actually a group of 5 families who had children with developmental disabilities, and understand in those days, when we look at 50 some odd years ago, what would happen to children or adults with developmental disabilities, if they didn't have a family member to care for them, is they would be sent to an institution. And, these families said, what's going to happen to our children when we're gone? We can't allow this to be the life that they live. There has to be something better. And it was groundbreaking at the time. This concept, what if people lived together in the community? What if we provided housing that's not a building far away from everyone, but it's in a neighborhood? It's with other people. And, we grew from this tiny little, mom and pop into an organization that serves 200 people and close to 30 locations across Oakland County. And it's really just pretty incredible to see what can happen when somebody sees a challenge and says, wait a minute, that's a problem and I'm not okay with that. I need to fix it.
It's really what a lasting legacy for our community. But when we think about, even as adults, we've had a hard time with this past year. How have you been able to help manage the crisis with those with developmental disabilities who may have a hard time kind of understanding this? Because a lot of people like routine.
So, and that's really been, I think, a large challenge, but one, I will say my team, our staff, really everyone has really risen to the occasion. But you can imagine, like you said, for any of us, for myself to feel this sense of mourning for my routines, for being able to do the things that I was able to do, before and are not able to do right now because of safety reasons. Many of the people that we serve really crave and thrive on that structure and that routine. And you can imagine to have all of that be taken away from you overnight. So what we've done internally is really build that support system around people, providing, and we talked about that when I was on over the summer, lots of virtual activities, again, lots of in-home activities, lots of support in a way that's safe so that we can create an environment that people are feeling safe and comfortable in. And I think we've also done a really good job, and our the people we serve have done a fantastic job, that we've had really, clear conversations, and everyone's needs their different messaging, right? Everyone has a different place in which they understand, but talking about the need to stay safe. And again, the need to do these things because of COVID, and putting our list together for the future of the things we want to do, when COVID is gone. And interestingly, for, vaccinations for our people served, there was concern initially that some of the people would be hesitant, right? Anyone's hesitant. Needles can be scary. The environment can be scary. And watching 100% of the people we serve, and people walking in here, one young woman in particular, I remember, she came into the building with her hands raised high in the air, and she was shouting, "Safety first." So, again, I think it's just an example of what we can do when we say, okay, right, we have a problem. These are the challenges. What can we do to alleviate as many of the challenges as possible? And just be open and honest with one another and support one another.
So I know that you've been able to host some of the vaccination clinics, and with that, is it the 2-shot or the 1-shot?
We've actually done the 2 shots, and early on, which I'm grateful for, we run a combination of licensed adult foster care homes and other congregate living, assisted living facilities. So we, in our first round, actually, were able to participate in the federal pharmacy program in January. And, they managed all the vaccinations for our adult foster care homes. And then as we went through the process of working with the Oakland County Health Department for assisted living, one thing that we recognized early on is it's not so simple to manage the logistics. And fortunately, again, I have a fabulous team here. We developed a project plan and timing schedules, and to consider also for a person with a disability, any disability, right? What does the room need to look like? Maybe loud noises scare me. Maybe crowds scare me. There's so many variables that could enter in to someone, right, being panicked because there are all these sensory challenges that are going on. And as we went through this process of getting our people vaccinated, and I'm grateful, the people that we serve in our staff actually were vaccinated in February. We said, okay, if this is a challenge for us, what about the people who don't have us, but who still are working with the challenge of a disability? And we talked to the Oakland County Health Department and said, we need to be your partner in this, because even though, right, selfishly, our people are taken care of, we can't imagine that this is going to be a simple process for adults with developmental disabilities, again, or physical disabilities who may need a ramp to get into the building, wide, again, doors to make sure that it's fully accessible, and their caregivers. And, you said, right, we've all pivoted and we've all changed. I mean, right, if someone had said to me, March of 2020, would I be doing anything that I'm doing right now? Probably not. But even had somebody said to us in January of 2021, so do you think that you're going to be hosting, vaccine clinics 1 to 2 days a week? I would have said, well, why would we be in that business? But again, identify a need, identify a problem. And I think that speaks to our founders, craft the solution.
Oh, and I love that, craft the solution. Chanel Braunstein with us here on the MegaCast. She's the CEO of JARC. And with that, so you get people through the first dose,
right?
But it's not over, because now the logistics continue with the second dose.
So, yeah.
So, but did you learn from the first one? It made it easier the second time around?
So because, again, I hate to say that we got to experiment with our people. It was not an experiment, but again, because of the federal pharmacy program where we had our dates ahead of time. And again, we had these private clinics. Walgreens was actually our pharmacy partner through the federal pharmacy program, and they were fantastic. And ahead of time, when we organized the first clinic, they said, this is the return date. And what we'll do, right, is we'll just schedule the exact same times, 4 weeks later, because it was the Moderna was the first vaccine that we received. And we looked at that and we said, that was a great idea. So we're kind of calling it the wash, rinse, repeat cycle. When people come in the door, we actually schedule 2 dates. We schedule for Pfizer, here's your first date. Your second date is exactly 21 days later. For Moderna, here's your first date. Your second date is exactly 28 days later. And if you came at 9 o'clock the first time, you come at 9 o'clock the second. That makes it simpler for people. There's no anxiety of, but how am I going to get my second dose? And what if my appointment's later in the day and I can't make it? And then they can book those out. Obviously, you do have, sometimes people can't make that second date. We work them into another clinic, but that tends to be the exception rather than the rule. And I won't take credit for this, although I will say I do help with reminder phone calls. I take my list of 25 people, but again, there are lots of people around me on my team who are sending constant reminder emails and phone calls and making sure that we don't have anyone who misses that second dose, because obviously full immunity isn't until 2 weeks after that second dose. And if you miss it, you could still contract COVID.
So how hopeful does being a part of the vaccine clinic make you and your team? Are you more hopeful that we're closer to the end of this now?
So I'm definitely more hopeful. And I would say also I'm more cognizant of the fact that we needed to be doing this. I have met people, I'll share an example with you. We had a young lady in a wheelchair with cystic fibrosis. She couldn't, again, she was eligible for the vaccine. And I do say to people, right, being eligible doesn't mean you have access. So she had been eligible. She couldn't find an appointment, and she needs to make sure that she's finding an appointment in a fully accessible space where there's a ramp for her wheelchair to come in, and being able, again, with an underlying health condition as serious as that, and COVID, which is a respiratory disease, to be able to vaccinate her, and knowing, we're doing part of this to keep her safe. We had just actually it was Monday, a gentleman who was 95 years old, but he doesn't use the internet. doesn't have a computer, right? So he's like making phone calls and having someone tell him, oh, no, just call this number. They'll help you, they'll get you in. And he doesn't have to deal with the challenge of technology he's not comfortable using. So it's going to take a village. And I look at this and say, we're one tiny part, and it is taking all of the vaccination partners who are working so hard in this. Again, the Oakland County Health Department and all of our health departments, of course, and the pharmacies that are participating. We actually have a pharmacy we're working with in our smaller clinics, AMAC Pharmacy, which provides medications to our homes. They're tremendous. It's going to take every single one of us doing this work and doing this work in a way that makes that fits people's needs to get us to the end. But I feel like a little bit, I'm so close I can kind of taste it, but I have to stop myself and say, okay, right, we're getting there. Let's get over this last hump.
What a learning experience it has been for you and your team. Any positives that maybe have come out of this that will stick around post-pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the biggest positive is the organizations that we are working with now, Detroit Disability Power, fantastic organization. I never would have met them if it hadn't been right for COVID, if it hadn't been for how are we going to get persons with disabilities vaccinated. The relationships that I've been able to craft with other agencies, Angels Place and Progressive Living, community living centers, because we looked at this and said, okay, we're not going to be competitors in this space. Let's combine forces. And I think that some tremendous good is going to come out of this, has come out of this, in people just coming to the table and not saying, I need to be first. Our name needs to be highest. You have to have our logo on this, but how we can cooperate. And I'll use actually my landlord and partner agency. So we rent space in the Jewish Federation building, the Max M. Fisher building. And obviously, right, this building has, for all intents and purposes, had its public spaces closed because of COVID. And going to the chief operating officer here, Steve Ingber, and saying, so what would you think if we started running vaccine clinics in your building? And not having him say, oh, hold on a second, we have to talk about this, that's a lot of traffic, but having him say, great, how can we help? We'll figure it out. We'll bring in extra security. We'll give you volunteers. He was standing actually at the front door of the building Monday with a clipboard, checking people in. So I think that speaks to nobody is operating from a place of what is in this for me, as much as what's in this for the community, and how can we work together to provide normalcy sooner rather than later.
That really is a beautiful sentiment to come out of this, because, I think so many of us that have worked with some of these government agencies, there is a lot of that, no, I need to do this. I approve this logo here. And it's not about that right now. And we've learned it's everything. We're all connected. We always say that, but people just don't really take it into consideration. But one thing COVID has definitely taught us, we're all connected. And while we can't be together in person, you can still forge new relationships that are going to last hopefully long beyond this pandemic.
Right. I think they will. And I think it's also just made us grateful for personal interactions. How many of us said before, really, do I have to go to another meeting? Do we have to go to that dinner? Do we have to do these things? And now saying, when can I do these things again? So I think it's just provided a lot more appreciation. But, again, I think it really, so many people that I know, so many incredible people, and the ego's been taken off the table. And that's incredibly refreshing, especially to say to people, hey, I need help, right? How hard is that for many of us to say, I can't do all this myself. I need help. And not have people judge you. And really, again, just want to be there to assist you, to bring everyone up.
So with that, Shane-Del, do you anticipate some of your programs that switch to virtual will be back in person soon?
So we're moving slowly towards that. You know, the good news is again that as our people are vaccinated and as some activities become safer, and fortunately, I was laughing a little bit this morning when someone said, "Oh, it's rainy and overcast today," and I said, "But it's not snowing." Last week at this time it was snowing. You know, as the weather's gotten better, that we're starting, you know, again to provide more in-person activities in a safe way. You know, we do lots of parking lot things. I don't know that we're going to be 100% anytime, you know, in the next few months, but I do think, you know, we're kind of slowly, we're turning up the dimmer switch. We haven't turned the lights back on, but we're turning that dimmer switch and are starting to pivot some of our people to more in person, you know, as we can do so safely. But certainly having these vaccines and having the data that's come on, you know, that's come out on the safety and the efficacy of these vaccines, I do tell people when they'll say, "Oh my goodness, 340 people still got COVID." And I'll say 340 out of more than 3 million. I'll take those odds any day that, you know, we are getting to the end of this. But you know, again, and I'll quote our governor, right? It's going to be a process. We're going to start to feel a little more normal every day. And my hope is maybe 2022, we look back and say, remember when?
Right.
Remember when we weren't in a room together? Remember when we did these things?
Well, let's hope it brings new appreciation and gratitude for the moments when we can be together. So I think we'll all enjoy that a little bit more. Before we say goodbye to you, how can people find out more information if they need to do so?
So first of all, I want to say again to anyone, regardless of whether or not you have a disability, but certainly for somebody, you know, with a disability or underlying health condition who needs a quiet, again, space and a different kind of setup to feel comfortable receiving this vaccine, they can call our vaccine hotline, which is 248-940-2605. So again, that's our vaccine hotline. I had a gentleman actually I talked to last week who has a panic disorder. And he tried to stand in line. He got an appointment, which was fantastic, but he tried to stand in line at the pharmacy. And especially after COVID, he was overwhelmed by the crowd. He had to leave. We were able to provide a quiet room for him to be in and to just receive his vaccine by himself. So again, to anyone who needs us, we're here for you. And if you need access to this vaccine, please, please, please give us a call and we're happy to help you. And then obviously for anyone who would want to learn more about JARC and what we're doing, I would always encourage them to go to our website, which is jarc.org, and you can sign up for our newsletters, you can sign up to volunteer, you can watch some of our videos, and there is always room at our table for anyone who wants to be, you know, a part of the work that we're doing, and incredible volunteer opportunities and just some great stories.
Well, it lifts your heart as well. So thank you again for taking time out of your day to be with us.
And thank you for having me again.
And thanks for what you're doing for the community. You know, people forget about those that are falling through the cracks, and you're there to lift them up. So I'm sure it's very much appreciated for, you know, those people, but also their family members as well.
Right. We all have to remember we are all individuals and we have individual needs and individual wants. And we try to meet people where they are.
Thank you again, Shandell Bronstein with us. She's the CEO of JARC. We're going to take a quick break here on the MegaCast. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about spring cleaning, not just your closet, but also your life. That's next here on the MegaCast.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too. Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too. Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together. Start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/one small step. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Great to have you with us here on the MegaCast. As a reminder, Tyler and I are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon live. You can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff, and then we are also live streaming today's edition of the MegaCast on our Facebook page. All of those locations makes up the MegaCast. We try to make it easy for you to be able to find the information. And if you can't tune in, you can always watch previous episodes on civiccentertv.com. Just click on the MegaCast. It is springtime here in the Motor City, finally, feeling like springtime, and that has so many people cleaning out their closets. But while you're decluttering the things around you, it's also a good opportunity to declutter your mind. Let's bring in Carrie Krawick. She is the therapist for the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, great to have you back with us. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much.
I will say, so many people, especially during the pandemic, because we have been spending so much more time in our homes, have been doing the decluttering around their homes. But you say, take it a step further.
Absolutely. There's so much that bogs us down in our mind. People feel it all the time that they're carrying so much extra stuff that's not useful, that's gone bad, that's even toxic. If you would empty it out of your fridge, you should really empty it out of your mind.
And they do say that like your messy space, like your environment has an impact on your mental health as well.
Sure, that's absolutely true. It's even more true for women. They experience a cluttered space, increases the likelihood they'll experience anxiety and depression. So you're right, just seeing clutter can cause stress, but also having clutter in our minds is also stressful. It's when we have too many things on our to-do list that are in our mind, we become overwhelmed, scattered, disorganized. So it's important to clean that up too.
I am one of those people too, by the way. I'll put stuff on my to-do list that I already did. Even if it was like, pick up socks. I don't care. I'm marking it off because I have an app and I like to hear that sound of it crossing it off. And I didn't really do anything, but it makes me feel better and feel more productive. And then it's easier to carry on with the day. So are there some tricks and of the trades that can help people declutter their mind?
Sure. So for one of them is actually writing your to-do list down. So keeping it on an app, writing it down on paper. What happens when you just circle through all of the things that are on your mind or things you might have to do or remember who to pick up from where at what time, when you don't have it written down or saved in a space, it's like having multiple apps open. So your brain is just doing all of this work to just kind of like reload and refresh that to the surface. If you could write it down, it's like putting it down on a shelf. It's like hitting Control Save. It takes it off your mind and puts it somewhere else. So that's certainly one helpful task.
With us right now on the MegaCast, Carrie Krawick. She is a therapist at Birmingham Maple Clinic. So does it also help, though, to declutter the things around you? To also get to that Zen space in your mind?
Sure. Like I said, people can experience a cluttered environment as stressful. And I think also, though, what happens when we kind of evaluate what's going on in our mind that led us to get cluttered in the first place, both physically and mentally. So often, and we hear so many times people say, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or he shouldn't be doing this, or shouldn't be doing that. That as we're saying should, especially to ourselves, we're piling on all of this extra junk. We're piling on guilt. We're piling on low self-esteem. We're piling on resentment. All of that stuff is just mess, right? It makes us feel lousy, especially the stuff like guilt and shame that make us feel somehow not enough. Well, then we add more clutter to our lives, either by taking on more tasks, trying to achieve more, buying more, like this new shirt will make me feel better, or this new something else, new house plant in my home will make it look more Instagram like. So as we're adding all of this stuff, we're also adding often physical stuff to our space in the form of more things or health food, or like I said, more clothes or whatever. So even that mental clutter can contribute to our physical clutter.
So you can see where the two really kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. It's been more than a year now. Have you seen any trends in how people are addressing the clutter in their lives? Is it piling up more, or are they taking this time to clear out more?
Well, I think, yeah, the blessing of COVID, especially at the start of springtime last year, was that people, like you said, were using their boredom to take on tasks. If they weren't working to the same degree or whatever, they didn't have the same outside commitments that they once had. They were using that time to chip away at some unmet tasks. Unmet tasks are another thing that actually cause a great deal of stress. Our brain kind of keeps these things as novel puzzles. We know we have to do this. We might trip over it. We might look at it. We leave it out till we see it, but it's just a constant reminder of what we haven't done. So COVID did give us the opportunity to maybe be a little more mindful, aware of, I do have the time to do this, and I will take advantage of that time by chipping away with a task. I think also at the start of COVID, and maybe it's gone a little way now, people were experiencing boredom in degrees they never had in a long while. Now we use our phones to sort of satiate ourselves during boredom, but it's actually during boredom when we come up with solutions to our problems, or we even brainstorm things that might be an opportunity. And I kind of say it's like emptying out your cupboard, seeing what's all inside, and then only putting back what you need. Giving yourself a space, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's a religious practice or spiritual practice, whether it's therapy or even journaling, allowing yourself some uninterrupted time will be the kind of thing as like cleaning out your closets, letting you sort of examine what's come in, what's going out, so that then you can only put back what's meaningful. And giving yourself that kind of routine time to do that is much like spring cleaning.
So kind of just before the pandemic hit, was the big Netflix series was popular. I forget the name of it, where
Marie Kondo.
Yes. Does it spark joy?
Yes.
And I think that had a lot of people reevaluating their closet and how they buy and things around their home. But just when we declutter, we tend to clutter back up. So, I'm looking at my cupboards where I cleaned them all out, organized everything, and now it's right back to the messy thing it was before. So how do you make it a habit that sticks?
Sure. So I think something, like I said, some routine habits, like having a method with which you clean up, if you're breaking down things by days of the week or month of the year to clean your physical space. I love there's some great suggestions online as far as cleaning your physical space, like using May, for example, to do your garage so it prepares you for the summer, using, the fall to do your cupboard so it prepares you for the holiday season. Obviously, after the holidays, doing removing toys and stuff so that you can make room for your new things. There's some really great ideas about being aware of the time of the year and choosing a physical space that's aligned with that time, which would become your routine year after year after year. And many of us already do that with our closets, with our garage, what have you. I think there is a way to do that also, emotionally too, using 1 month of the year, say for example, as we're approaching tax season and this time, using 1 month of the year to evaluate your money habits, what drives you, what feelings, what thoughts do you have that are right or wrong when it comes to money, what goals do you have, using different times of the year to maybe emphasize cleaning up different things, which relationships are meaningful to you, which activities or goals do you have, using the seasons of the year as maybe an opportunity to bring something to the surface because it's on the plate during that time of year.
So with that, and those are great suggestions, do you also recommend, as people are trying to declutter their mind, to keep a journal so that they can maybe observe some of the patterns that emerge from that?
Sure, absolutely. Just like I said, a journal is kind of like taking everything out on a shelf and laying it out on a blanket, kind of like the Marie Kondo way. A journal or even a therapy session offers you the time to sort of take everything out, look at it, and then decide, what of this do I want to put back? What of this can I repurpose or use differently? I think, like we were talking about too, so often we try to fulfill things, we feel boredom, we maybe feel like we shouldn't be bored, we should be busy, so we do more, we need more activities. Even cleaning up, like you said, sometimes is just something to do instead of doing something else, and getting more comfortable with having this space be, having the opportunity to really look inside and not feeling shame or guilt about what you bought or what you did, but to say, I just want to be curious about what is here. Journaling, like I said, a meditation practice, even walking outdoors, can all evoke those experiences.
Carrie Kraywick with us here on the MegaCast. She's a therapist over at Birmingham Maple Clinic. And Carrie, I think hopefully the one thing that comes out of this crisis, we are starting to talk about mental health issues so much more. It's hopefully the stigma is easing up a bit, really a lot, we hope. And with that, are you seeing more people seeking out the help of a therapist?
Sure, absolutely. There is kind of twofold. Of course, everything that happened the last year caused dramatic anxiety, caused a lot of stress, caused a lot of uncertainty for people, caused people to be together in their relationships in another way. So there was that component of people being in circumstances that really evoked the need for therapy. There was also access that changed, the policies amongst insurers and even the government to allow people more access to telehealth. That provided the opportunity, and also for people who had felt the stigma before, allowed them to enter into therapy without even ever leaving their home, ever having the embarrassment or anxiety or shame of going in person. So that was really afforded the opportunity too for people to explore therapy in a way that maybe they hadn't before. I mean, and then there's also, right, people were experiencing, some of the long hauler symptoms of COVID are actually experiencing anxiety and depression as a result of as one of the constellation of physical symptoms that they're experiencing long term.
So do you anticipate that telehealth therapy sessions will remain post-pandemic?
We are hoping so. It really depends on if insurer providers are willing to continue to support and reimburse for those services. If people are willing, if they have to pay out of pocket for them, which they may if the insurance policies change. I think that, in my opinion, it would benefit both the consumers and the insurers to have people have a safe way to be treated that doesn't expose them to greater health risks. So certainly we hope that that would be possible, though often with those kind of things, the powers that be make choices that aren't always in line with us as providers and as consumers.
I know it's so hard to navigate the insurance world. But again, hopefully it is something that sticks around, because we know too, it also opens up the access of therapy to people that maybe didn't live close enough to a therapist. Sure. So this does open up doors for so many more people.
Absolutely. Even the benefits of the schedules, that people are not necessarily confined to their office space from 9 to 5, but maybe have some flexibility to work part from home or be able to take an hour midday instead of lunch and just do a therapy session on the spot. It really, like you said, it's provided so much in terms of time and space to do that.
Carrie Krabick with us here on the MegaCast with that. Carrie, just another minute or two before we say goodbye. Anything you want to mention that maybe we didn't talk about here today?
Sure. I think the most important thing, like we said about when it's cleaning up your mental space, is really evaluating what you're bringing in terms of thoughts or feelings, and not criticizing yourself, but being curious. What meaning did this have to me? Why did I hang on to this? Kind of like, does it bring me joy? I mean, I really like that question Marie Kondo asked, or does it bring me any kind of positive feeling or experiences that help me with my goals, what it might be, so that when we understand it, we know why it's there, as opposed to just letting it stay as this puzzle on our mind that we keep kind of revisiting. I should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that. Is like, where did these thoughts even come from? Like, where did I even get this from? And do I have a way to use it? If I have a way to use it well, then it can stay. But if it's not useful to me, it needs to go.
When should a person seek help, therapy help?
Certainly anytime. We always think of, like, certainly anytime the feelings that they're feeling in terms of anxiety, depression, despair, things that are really plaguing them, are they increasing in intensity? Are they lasting longer periods of time without being able to kind of return to a normal state? And are they happening more often? So intensity, frequency, and duration are certainly things to be mindful of. Feelings are feelings. It's okay to have a down day, or certainly if you have an experience that causes stress, to feel stress. It's okay to feel stress. But it's when you feel all stress all the time in greater and greater degrees with no relief, that's really a sign you need therapy. Of course, anytime you're feeling like you're a danger to yourself and others, if you're having thoughts of self-harm, thoughts of suicide, it's too much for you even to be willing to live, then that would be an absolute get help. There's someone there for you. You'll be okay.
And that is the important thing for people to know. Help is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for it. And again, I think during COVID-19, we've all come to realize that everyone needs some help, and it's okay to ask for it. So Carrie Krawick with us here. She's a therapist for the Birmingham Maple Clinic. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a quick break here in the MegaCast, just about 20 minutes left here on the show. And when we come back, we'll talk about putting your best face forward in the career search, one organization, and how they're helping people do just that. That's next here on the MegaCast.
Over a decade ago, the journey to a COVID vaccine began. Building upon research on other coronaviruses, scientists continued with months of research and development, 3 phases of clinical trials with tens of thousands of diverse volunteers, then peer review and authorization, to deliver a safe and effective vaccine that will protect all of us. Discover the facts for yourself at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine. Wearing a mask is more than protection. It's a bridge to better days. The path back to celebrations with family. Nights out on the town with friends. Game days with your favorite sports teams. And the thrill of live concerts. But until we can all get the COVID-19 vaccine and build community immunity, which will take time, we all need to continue to stay careful. Because Michigan's recovery is depending on you, and so are your family, friends, and neighbors. So even after you're vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and social distance. One day in the near future, we will all be able to put this pandemic behind us. But until then, spread hope, not COVID. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
We want to say thank you for being with us here on the MegaCast. Just about 20 minutes here left in the show. And for so many people throughout the pandemic, they've either lost their jobs or they've realized their job is not bringing them passion and they want to make a career change. But it's not always so easy, especially in today's day and age. To talk a little bit more, let's bring in Hannah Berger. She's the career counselor at JBS Human Services. Hannah, thank you for being with us.
Of course. I'm actually an employment specialist, and I have several colleagues who do career counseling that I can happily connect you with as well.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the event you all have coming up.
Yeah, so tonight at 5:30, we're presenting Clothing Confidence, how to prepare and dress for a job interview. It's a free webinar that we're doing on Zoom and Facebook Live alongside Council Resale and the National Council of Jewish Women. We're going to be presenting how you can best put your best foot forward for a job interview. Lots of advice and tips on how to prepare, how to research a company, how to be prepared to answer typical interview questions, and also how to dress for it, which Sandy will talk about later.
So one of the things that makes this time so challenging, a lot of these interviews are via Zoom or over the internet now. Does that pose different challenges for the interviewee?
I think in some ways it definitely does make it a little bit more challenging. And for example, it's harder to get a sense of someone's personality over Zoom and their general feel and how they might fit into an office space. But on the other hand, it does present some opportunities. You're not going to be stressed about making sure you get to the building on time. You're not going to be overwhelmed by meeting a bunch of people at once. You'll be in the comfort of your own home. And also, if you're someone who gets nervous or flustered, you can have a little set of notes nearby as well if you want to reference them every once in a while. So that there is a benefit as well to a virtual interview.
So what about trying to make eye contact through a screen?
That's tricky. And my tip for that is, while it does seem a bit counterintuitive, you actually don't, when you want to make eye contact, you don't want to be looking at the person on the screen across from you's eyes. You actually want to be making eye contact with your camera, because it does a little bit more of a visual trick that it makes it seem like you're actually looking at someone's eyes.
These are tricky times, but but that's why you're having the webinar too. Is really to talk about this, because you don't want to practice live during an interview. You want to be prepared for that interview, and so there are some tricks to doing in how you're preparing for today's interview.
Certainly. One tip that I give to everyone, virtual interview or not, is to research the company and also research the person that you're interviewing with. And you want to make sure you're prepared with a list of questions to ask at the end. When someone who's interviewing you asks, "What questions do you have for me?" you never want to say, "Oh no, I don't have any." You want to be prepared and show that you've done your research. You also want to reference something that you've talked about in the interview or conversation and ask a question about that, and then ask a question about the person's work background or how they made it into the company. So that's my little rule of 3 right there.
Those are good rules to go by. Should a person take notes?
I think it's never a bad idea to take notes. It shows that you really care about what the other person has to say. However, don't take so many notes that you're not able to engage back with the person you're speaking with. But having a notebook is a good idea.
One of the good things about virtual, it kind of takes the pressure off of the handshake. Should you grip it hard, not too hard, not too soft? So at least that's gone away.
Definitely. I honestly don't know if the handshake is going to make a return post-COVID. It's kind of an interesting practice. I wonder what will replace it.
Yeah, that is true, because it's a little weird to do an elbow bump with someone that you're just meeting for the first time. So yeah, that's really going to be fascinating. One of the great things about the webinar, though, is you all are taking it a step further as well and helping the person dress for the interview and what should they be wearing. So for that side of the conversation, let's bring in Sandy Motz. She's a long-term volunteer for the Council Resale Shop. I love when you were on previously, you did a little fashion show for us.
Yep, and I have a fashion show for you again today, because it is so important to dress for the interview, whether it's virtual or if it's in person. As soon as you walk through the door, even if it's a virtual door on your computer, that's the first impression that you make on the prospective employer. So you really want to look sharp. You want to look clean. You want to look pressed. You don't want to wear a rumpled shirt, because that's what they're going to remember, is that you did or didn't take the time to prepare for the interview. Just like Hannah said, you need to prepare knowing who the company is. Well, put your best foot forward and look good for the interview. And at Council Resale, like you said, when I was on before, I showed you clothing. We have so much clothing that is perfect for an interview. And what we're offering for anybody who attends and registers for the webinar this evening, they get a $25 coupon towards their interview outfit. And as you know, our prices are so fabulous that they can really get a lot for that $25. So, and I'd also like to say, if your interview is virtual, don't dress from the waist up. Put on an entire outfit, even if nobody can see you from the waist down. You will know that you are put together top to bottom, and accessorize also. I have a men's suit here, white shirt, a little bit of color in the tie. Doesn't matter what job you're applying for. Dress as if you want to show them that you can do any job that they have to offer. And for women, a little black dress, little black dress. You can throw a sweater over it. It's hard to really see on the camera. You can put a little sweater over it. You can add a blazer. I have a blazer here. Put a scarf on, accessorize with a scarf. I even have a beautiful necklace. And these prices are so wonderful that anybody could dress for their interview without having to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, because it can be very stressful for people attending an interview, especially if you are on a budget right now, or if you've been out of work, to try to come up with an outfit that makes you look presentable. So you don't want to lose the job before you even open your mouth, and your appearance does count. With that too, Sandy, are there certain colors that you recommend? Or I know sometimes people will wear a very busy print. Checks don't look good on a camera.
I agree. And whether you're on camera or in person, I say go simple. Like I showed you the plain black dress. If you want to jazz it up a little bit, add color at your neck, add color on a scarf. Keep it simple. Definitely keep it simple. And when you walk in the door at Council Resale, which by the way is on 12 Mile in Berkeley, our staff is wonderful and they will help you find an appropriate outfit. And the same thing with men. Wear the white shirt. It's very plain, but you can add a little color with the tie. Stay away from the busy prints. And even if you're applying for a job that is in PR or design, and you might think that the people like to dress a little funky, don't do it for the interview. Once you've got the job and you see what's acceptable, that's fine. But for the interview, play it straight.
So with that, Sandy, if someone is going to be doing a virtual interview, in some ways it's easier, but while they may be focused on their appearance, should they also be focused on what's in the background? And also, sometimes how you look in a mirror is not how you look on camera.
Well, that's very true, Ronnie. And that was a good idea. You maybe should have a virtual background so it doesn't show clutter behind you. And it's, that's easy to do. And like what Hannah said is try and focus on the camera as opposed to looking at the person on the screen. I'm trying to do that now.
It's hard, especially when, like for me, I have a different camera than I use on my actual computer. So there are challenges there, and it comes with practice. And practice being, you should practice before the actual interview.
Absolutely.
So with that, Sandy Mott's with us here right now. She's with the National Council of Jewish Women, a longtime volunteer for the Council Resale. And with that, if someone is going to come into the store, I know the last time you guys have been really taking a lot of precautions for people to feel comfortable, especially when they're buying items that are donated.
Correct. So everything that is, at first when we opened up after we were shut down because of the pandemic, we quarantined all our clothing. and we put it in a pod for 72 hours. The CDC has come back and said it's not necessary, that the clothing, they're in garbage bags, and we take them out, we hang them up. And the store itself is sanitized. We have sanitizing stations throughout the store. We only allow 15 people into the store at a time. We practice social distancing. Everyone must wear a mask when they're in the store. So it's very safe to come into our store and not worry about COVID.
So given the limited capacity numbers right now, should people make an appointment or is it okay to walk in?
It is okay to walk in. We are a small store, but typically 7 or 8 customers are in the store at a time, and there's enough room for everybody to be spaced out.
So Hannah, if I can throw it back over to you, Hannah Berger, she is with the JBS Human Services. With the webinar, is there a cost to attend the webinar?
No, it's completely free. And then you also get that benefit of the $25 off the next time you go to council resale. So in fact, in some ways, we're paying you.
It really is. I mean, how often do you get that offer, right? You're getting help and a coupon to be able to get free clothes.
And I think it really just speaks to how much JBS and Council Resale and NCJW want to help our community. It's a tough time for everyone. And we're just very committed to helping as many people as we can and giving them quality advice and quality clothes.
So
not giving, but you know.
But when we're talking about some of the people that you anticipate are going to be signing up for today, what types of careers do they typically seem to be looking for, or is it really all across the board?
It is so across the board. In the last 9 months that I've been working at JBS, I've had people looking for careers in PR and marketing to nonprofit professionals looking for new jobs. And I've also had someone looking to start a career in hydroponics and mushroom farming. So like I work with everyone. And I think what makes JBS special is that unique relationship that you form with the client. You really get to know what their goals are and what their hopes and dreams are for their career. And I get to help them find a fit for themselves. So it's pretty special.
So what is the latest that someone can sign up for the webinar? Do you have a cap on how many people?
Oh, no, we're encouraging everyone to come. The great thing is you can register for the webinar through a link, or you can also watch it on Facebook Live, and we'll get your contact information through that. And you can start as soon as 5:30 when we begin.
See, that is one of the positive sides of COVID, being able to do so many of these events online. You don't have to worry about capacity limits.
Yeah, not only capacity limits, but we also have been able to expand our reach. We help people in Southeast Michigan, and that used to mean Detroit and people who could come to the office, but now I have clients in Ann Arbor, one in Flint, one in Ypsilanti, so we're able to help more people in a geographical range as well because we are virtual.
That is great. Hannah Berger with us here on the MegaCast. She's with the JBS Human Services. They are offering a webinar tonight, Clothing Confidence, How to Prepare and Dress for an Interview. So really a lot of important tips on trying to get your foot in the door. And it starts with your appearance. Sandy, before we say goodbye, Sandy Motz is the National Council of Jewish Women. She's a longtime volunteer with the Council Resale Shop there in Berkeley. Sandy, any last minute advice that you want to give before we say goodbye for the day?
Just you always want to put your best foot forward, and that starts with the first impression that the future employer is going to see is you. And also, if you want to sign up for the webinar, JVS website or the NCJW website, which is ncjwmi.org. And we would love to see everybody come, even if you're not looking for a job right now, but you might want some advice for the future. It's a great webinar to attend.
As Sandy, I will say you're always so stylish. Accessories, they're the key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It adds a little pop to whatever you're wearing.
Are you still taking donations from
Oh,
people
yes.
that may be cleaning out their closets?
You know, last time we talked about that, and people are still cleaning out their closets, and we're happy to take donations Monday through Saturday from 10 to 4.
That's great to know, because we do know so many people aren't going into the office as much. So they seem to be clearing out some of those dress clothes. Hannah and Sandy, we appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck tonight on your webinar.
Thank you.
so
Thanks
much.
for having us, Ronnie.
That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the MegaCast. We'll be back here bright and early tomorrow morning starting at 10 a.m. This has been the MegaCast.